The time for talk is over. Get them thumbs out and get ready to throw down. Hey, it's Game Rant, and here are the 10 best beat-em-up games of all time, ranked. Number 10, Battletoads. Congratulations, you've just stumbled onto a beat-em-up list that's going out of its way to avoid listing a bunch of Capcom games from the 90s. And truthfully, the results even surprised ourselves. Case in point, Battletoads by Rare. Yes, the same studio that went on to make GoldenEye and Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64 put together one of the single best beat-em-up games ever made. And it's even more exceptional when you consider this is running on the humble Nintendo Entertainment System. There's a number of options from running attacks, weapons, and unique explosive combos which knock enemies clear from the screen, and even a first-person boss fight in the very first stage, years before Turtles in Time would politely borrow the gimmick. Yes, the speed bike section is too hard. In fact, it's all too hard, which is why it's so high on this list. We suggest a Game Genie, save states, and a friend. You won't regret it. Number 9, Comic Zone. Speaking of games which are held back by their own absurd level of difficulty, here is Comic Zone, which actually borrows Art Spiegelman's concept of comics for the title, a clear nod to the influential avant-garde figure in the industry. That or Comic Zone was already trademarked. Thankfully, unlike real 1990s comics, the Sega Technical Institute decided to put panels right into this combative adventure game, instead of just constant splash pages. Comic Zone features a unique form of combat, not unlike the classic Mortal Kombat games of the era, but with items and puzzles. Again, this game, as wonderful and inventive as it is, only recently became more playable in the era of save states. But those with thumbs of steel will sing its praises for its complex, expressive gameplay. Number 8, Double Dragon. Don't be mad, but we had to pick between the Kunio-kun games like River City Ransom and Double Dragon. And Double Dragon won out because of its pure significance. Between the terrible animated show and the terrible movie and a couple of truly terrible sequels, the Double Dragon franchise ran its cultural cachet and credibility into the ground fast. So it's easy to overlook how tremendously fun, gritty, and violent this first arcade classic was. The combat was stiff and basic, but the world was packed with items and interactive areas, allowing arcade players to quickly grasp the gameplay and pump in more quarters to see what inventive and original idea they would come up with next. And it all starts with one cheap slug in the stomach. Iconic. Number 7, The Simpsons. And on the complete flip side is The Simpsons. Instead of dark streets being stalked by wayward gang members, The Simpsons put players into one of the 4 titular Simpsons family members to smack around the numerous forces of Monty Burns because, well, Maggie was kidnapped during a robbery by Smithers. Look, okay, it's season 1, and Konami was working with what they thought the show would be, based on early character and location designs. Is it canon? Good lord, no. But this is a neon bright, beautiful arcade beat-em-up full of bizarro bosses like a pro wrestler who only appears in one single scene in the whole Simpsons series. Besides, where else you gonna see Marge go ham on spinning teacups with a hammer? Nah, mother's love. Number 6, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. If ever there was a property made for the arcade beat-em-up, it's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, a comic book featuring a unique merger of Western animation and Japanese manga, with homages aplenty towards the 80s and 90s gaming scene. But it's the execution that floored audiences, returning to a unique flavor of beat-em-up that falls somewhere between Data East and Kaneko. If the name DJ Boy rings a bell, this game was made for you. With big, stout sprites and a great sense of locomotion, and an electric soundtrack, this 2010 release was bigger than a single game. It felt like a validation for a gameplay and graphical style that had been overlooked for some time, and it helped restore popularity to the genre. Number 5, Castle Crashers. Ah yes, but giving Scott Pilgrim all the credit wouldn't be fair, as the minds behind Newgrounds.com and Alien Hominid, genuine trailblazers within the video game industry, returned with their homage to the beat-em-up, Castle Crashers, which deliberately missed the familiar tones of beat-em-ups by going medieval. Yes, we see you Knights of the Round, but Castle Crashers' plucky yet exceedingly violent characters had way more bite and complexity than that Capcom classic, by having their characters level up and gain new moves, capitalizing on the system's guardian heroes developed on the Sega Saturn. Even among the classics, Castle Crashers won out for its sublime co-op. Number 4, Dragon's Crown. For whatever reason, Castle Crashers has never received a sequel, but if it did, we'd like to imagine it'd be a bit like Dragon's Crown. The unusually shiny 2D graphics have aged into something charmingly out of date, resembling a primer explosion at a manga factory. The game frequently changes scale but keeps its basic gameplay true to the beat-em-up. But what makes Dragon's Crown exceptional is how it expands these concepts into a double-digit adventure. That's right, you won't be crushing this one in 90 minutes. Vanillaware broadened the beat-em-up into a dozen or so hours. double or triple that depending on your willingness to explore everything. And that's even before getting into the different class types, which vary by distance, defense, and magic. It's been over a decade, Vanillaware. What are we doing with the sequel already? Number 3, Yakuza Zero. Oh yeah, by now you can tell this list has fully gone off the rails, as we are now talking about 2015's Yakuza Zero, a game which includes cutscenes that halt gameplay for several minutes at a time while aging mobsters talk about duty and honor. But it's impossible to deny Yakuza Zero is a 3D RPG beat-em-up, where players will be stopped by random ne'er-do-wells, to which Majima or Kiryu will crush them into pieces. Some view the combat as busy work, but not us, Jack. Mastering combos and nabbing improvisational weapons while slamming energy drinks is so satisfyingly violent, we'd give up the nightclub minigame before changing the combat. Thankfully, we don't have to, as Yakuza Zero delivers all of that in one convenient package. Now back to hostess managing. Number 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge. If you ever needed proof that beat-em-ups will never truly go away, nor will they recede in quality, take a look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. With up to 6 players jumping in at once, new characters like April O'Neil and Casey Jones, and a distinct art style which pays tribute to the Konami originals, Shredder's Revenge might be the best TMNT game, which feels like sacrilege to say until you and a crew click the pixelated Foot Clan down a manhole. What could have been a cheap nostalgic cash-in instead stacks up with the classics. It's not anything we expected to say, hero in a half shell indeed. Number 1, Streets of Rage 2. Look, every game on here is a banger, and sorry Final Fight fans, but after part 1, things go sideways. But it only takes a few minutes with Streets of Rage 2 to recognize it as one of the best beat-em-ups of all time. Sega in the early 1990s sought to challenge game's cool factor, a nebulous concept to say the least, but rain-soaked street brawls all put to some of the finest music ever put to a video game make a winning argument. Seriously, dance clubs in Japan were bumping to Yuzo Koshiro's work on the FM synthesizer. Streets of Rage 2 is imbued with unique energy. It's awkwardly stiff, the hitboxes are short, yet it feels defined in control, and it's moment-to-moment gameplay that no other beat-em-up can match. What is the difference between being fun and timelessly cool? Well, Streets of Rage 2 has it written on its bare knuckles. And there you have it, the 10 best beat-em-up games of all time, ranked. How about giving those bruised thumbs a break and keep clicking on here in Game Rant, as we have even more lists, and we'll see you next time.